Well, my next guest has built his betting brand into one of the most recognisable in the country, dare I say, the world. And he's done so in unconventional fashion as well, having been enthralled by the business of betting from the age of 12 when he was taken to Hove Dogs by his solicitor father. A career in the legal profession wasn't for him. The law's loss, I think, is our gain. Ben Keith, good morning.
Thank you very much for having me onto the show. I feel very honoured, Nick.
Not at all. Thank you for being here. Am I right in thinking that's what grabbed you? A trip to the Dogs at that young age?
Definitely. I think that I love to see a true professional at work. I believe that, you know, for instance, when I used to go to Walthamstow Dogs, I used to have a gentleman by the name of Max Shoes, who, unsurprisingly, at the end of the night, if he'd won, he was paid in money. But if he lost, he'd say, "Wait there, lads," and he'd come down and he'd pay us all in shoes. But I'd say to him, "I've got this client that I want you to send shoes to. He does this job. He's from this part of the country. He's this age." And they'd get the shoes and they'd go, "How do you know it's my favourite pair of shoes?" But that was his passion. He was obsessed, and a bit like you have an algorithm of how to interview each person in your head, that intuition that builds up over thousands of interviews. From that age, a passion erupted inside me. Really, my childhood ended then. Because from that first night at the Dogs, I was at the betting shop every day. I was bunking off school to go to Plumpton on a Monday, Hove Bags on a Wednesday. My father was so kind, and it's now as an adult that I look back and I realise how kind he was, because every weekend he'd take me to Hackney to watch, say, you know, the Power Twins, or I saw Victor Chandler bet there when they reopened the track, or watch Tony Morris at Wembley. And I was just obsessed with watching the nuance of different bookmakers' work.
So it wasn't just the fact that you were interested in the dogs or the horses.
Yep.
It was the actual business of betting on these events. That's what hooked you in, even as a 12-year-old.
Yeah, I mean, of course, like the first night I went there, when I was 12, I had a £2 place bet to start the evening on a dog called Sarah Jones, right? And I sat there and the lights went down, the hair is on the move, and that noise of the traps cracking open and the dogs coming out and the sand spitting up. I mean, I love dogs anyway. That was electric. I'd never felt anything like it. And then school didn't really have a meaning to me, because that was my school. But the area of the betting ring, I feel so blessed to have found the game. Because I think that going back to that passion and expertise, some people, they never find it. They do so well academically, where their memory is tested, but their true intelligence and their souls aren't tested. They don't challenge themselves and try to reach their own potential, because they don't find that obsession.
So people talk about left brain and right brain, and whether you're more interested in something that is a numerical challenge as opposed to a literary challenge. Yeah. It strikes me from what you're saying, you're not necessarily a numbers man. Your interest has been sparked in a more kind of sensual way, or a sensory way.
I believe that, look, we're all a contradiction, and I would say that, look, my style of being a bookmaker is, I'm a figures man. I bet to figures and I bet to faces. But I would say that my weakness as a bookmaker is that I'm not a tech person, but my strength is I understand identity. And the most successful bookmakers who've had the honour of sitting before you here and speaking to our world, they will be people who've, I believe, understood identity. Because there are so many bookmakers who offer a fantastic service. It's not for me to name them, but they've come and gone, and they've said, but our service was just as good as Sky Bet and Bet365. Yeah, it was, but what did you stand for? Who were you? And so I think that that you can't beat figures. Nobody is bigger than the market, right? Okay, so you have to have an understanding of figures to be a bookmaker, but that other side of the brain, you have to connect that in. You cannot be all things to all men, or you end up being nothing to anybody, because subconsciously, remember, people bet with their own.
But you're as much an anthropologist as you are a mathematician. Would you say that? You're playing the man.
Definitely, yes. but I think that we all behave differently in every situation and every relationship. We make different jokes with different people. We speak to different. You know, look, you interview thousands of people, and you know how to get the best out of Barney Curley or Mark Prescott. They're going to be different customers for you, aren't they? And it's my job to look at somebody and think, am I going to beat this person? So
you have to be a bit of a chameleon if you are going to be a successful bookmaker, is that what you're saying?
I think you have to have your guard up at all times. I would say that, look, I very much stay in my lane. I don't comment on what you do. I don't comment on a jockey's ride or a trainer. I don't comment on other bookmakers. That's not my business. I'm minding my own business, right? But it's very much, when you're a bookmaker, people will tell you what they want you to believe to get through, right? Okay, so I have to filter that. I have to think, well, how much of that is actually in my favour and what I want to hear. And in my 20s, I fell again and again and again because people would tempt that greed. Oh, I've got this wonderful, you know, college football for you to lay or whatever. You know, oh, it wasn't so wonderful, but if you could just pay anyway, right? Yeah. And then I spent my 30th birthday walking around Hove Park. It was a terrible birthday, and I decided that all of those dreadful errors that I'd done to myself and I'd allowed to happen in my 20s were actually lessons. And when I owned them, then I flew in my 30s.
But you've got to be prepared to fail over and over and over again, which you clearly were. And a lot of people would fail once and go, I don't fancy doing this. So what is it inside you that compelled you to keep going?
Well, there is an easy answer to that question, and you might think it's a joke, but it's not. And I would have thought that it probably applies to you, right? I think that it applies to anybody who has to attack every day and try new things, which you do, right? I mean, your podcast, I mean, to do it every day for 5 years or whatever it's been, I take my hat off to you. You're able to innovate, you're able to make things. You have to be who you are, but ready to pivot all the time. But it's simply because I couldn't do anything else. Remember, once you have fallen in love that way, once you've found a passion, once you said, you know, I want to be Tony Morris, I want to be Barry Dennis, I want to be Cyril Steen, I want to be Fred Doan, I want to be whatever, but really you want to be yourself eventually, right? Okay, and you want to take the best from all of those and try to strengthen yourself. But remember, if I wasn't a bookie, they wouldn't give me a job in Tesco's. I put the Cocoa Pops on the wrong.
Why wouldn't they give you a job in Tesco's? Because you're self-evidently
I'm an imbecile. No, but all I know...
You're not an imbecile. You're self-evidently a bright person, a quick-thinking person, somebody with good wit, good judgment, an ability to be entrepreneurial. Why wouldn't they want you in Tesco's?
No, but I've made myself useless because I've delegated everything in employing people who in every single area are better than me.
But that implies good judgment, doesn't it? And it implies a lack of mistakes. It implies a lack of arrogance because it means that you don't think you can do everything better than all the other people.
Oh, well, no, I can't. I mean, the game is vast now. I mean, 30 years ago, if you were a TV presenter or a bookie, that's what you were. Now you've got to have compliance people, you've got to have tech people, you've got to have, you've got to have people, PR people, marketing people, the whole lot.
Tell me about the influence of your father on you then, because he was the person who took you to Hove.
That's a beautiful question. Do you know why? Because about 6 months ago, he brought us all onto a call, and my dad...
when you say us all, so...
Family.
So how many of you are there?
There's 4.
So 4...
My sister, and my mum, and him.
OK.
And,
sister older or younger?
Younger.
OK.
And there was one error. When we were children, my mum and dad would compare us and we would compete, which was not healthy. But now I'm very, very close to my sister, and that competition's gone away completely, and I really love her. I'm very, very proud of her. She's an incredible person. She got the best ever GCSE results in Sussex, and she lost a kidney and she was on the blood machine, and she did the exams in the hospital, and she's still got the 3rd best results in the country. And they said to her, well, normally we send people like you to Japan to be a doctor. She said, well, we obviously won't. They said, well, we obviously won't with you on the machine. She said, oh, I'm going, don't worry about that. You know, she's a right hard nut. Anyway, but he brought us onto a call, and
and they used to compare you.
Yeah, it's not healthy. No, because I mean I'm an eccentric.
But maybe it was health. Maybe it was good for you, because maybe...
No, it was not good. It wasn't good
Would you have achieved what you'd achieved had you not had that competition instilled in you, even if it didn't feel very healthy at the time?
I think I would have done, because I was just, I mean, look, I've changed as a person. I've got older. I was an animal. I mean, I was an animal for the game. I just wanted to attack the game every single day. And I was scared of nothing. When you've got nothing, you can play a lot bigger, you know. But no, it's not a good way. But he brought us onto the court, and he's had... when he passes, he will be stuffed and put into the Science Museum or the Natural History Museum, because nobody on earth has beaten as many cancers and illnesses and all the rest of it. But he actually said, and he's had all the different treatments and all the rest of it, but he said, I've got liver cancer. And, well, I said, well, bring it on. You're 5-0. Bring on the liver cancer. Let's go 6-0, Dad. You know, go have a transplant, do the chemo, whatever. He said, no, I've chosen not to. And I was like, for weeks, no, fighting him. And he said, no, this is the decision I've made. But my father is a very, very gentle, genuine, kind person. I've taken that. Where he connects with people. He has a very gentle touch, and he's very understanding. He's patient of others. He doesn't judge, and he's always said, "Look, I'll always be there for you, son. Whatever you do, I'll always be at the gates waiting for you." And he texted that to me yesterday, in fact. And but I think that, you know, we're enjoying every week. It's not, he wouldn't have known he's got it unless because he fell over and broke some of his ribs, and they did an X-ray, and then they saw the liver cancer. But it's now that I realise that whenever I wanted to go on Boxing Day to Catford to watch John Humphrey's work, or I wanted to go to Wembley and look at the enormous whiteboard where they put up every heat and anti-post price, and I'd watch Tony Morris work in his way, I'd watch the Power Twins work in his way, or I'd go to Walthamstow, or we'd go to Portsmouth Dogs and have a curry on the way home. You know, and he had no interest. He might do a 20p reverse forecast. That's love. He enabled that. He didn't judge it. He didn't stop it. He knew that's what I wanted to do, and I take that from him, and I've learned that from him, and I hope that I'll carry that on, certainly with my children.
And what's your sister doing now?
My sister is a doctor, and she's married a genius, and I must tell you a funny story. Right, so he really is a genius, but he's completely under the thumb. We love him. His name's Rob, and they met. They were volunteering.
She sounds like a formidable woman.
Oh, she's terrifying. If you had her on here, you'd want her in a cage. Right, but his name's Rob, and he's a genius. And they met at Imperial, and they were both volunteering at the soup kitchen for the homeless on the Strand. And anyway, Rob used to be able to find oil with his computer. Right? He could find oil with a computer. Right.
You've got his number, obviously, just pass it on.
Listen, I used to say to him, look, there's this thing called Betfair, we've got to get on it, Rob. And he was like, no, I so want to make all these other people rich finding oil. Me. Right, no, anyway, but look, we're all motivated differently. Anyway, and when he turns up at my mum and dad's house, my mum's got a list of jobs for him, like, you know, mend the sink, change the tyre, all of these complete banalities. And the poor man's completely mugged off, right? And anyway, I had a party for an Australian friend who came here with his family a few years ago, and Rob was there, and I said, "Hi, Rob, how are you doing?" And he said, I said, "How's your job going?" And he said, "Oh, I'm designing ships." And he stood there for 15 minutes telling me what he did, and at the end, I didn't understand anything, and I said, "But I don't but do you design yachts? Do you design speedboats or tankers or posh boats that people live on?" He said, no, Ben, I designed chips, microchips. Right, okay. And it turned out he's a genius and works for a company called Arm, and he now lives in a mansion.
Oh,
right.
perfect.
Yeah, and we've all mugged him off for years, the poor man, and he's a delight. They've got a snooker table and everything.
There'll be people out there saying, yeah, he's been mugging me off for years as well. But you've been doing it extremely successfully, and you built up a massive business. You've still got retail as a part of your business as well. What's it like being a bookmaker in 2026, given the year that we've just had?
I think that I'm good at listening to people, like you are. I'm fascinated by people's stories. And I like to be surrounded by, I believe that, look, a good diet is fish, meat, fruit, veg. I like to meet old, young, black, white, aristocrat, criminal, millionaire, millionaire, bin a million.
You basically sound like my guest list for about the last year, yeah.
Every single person, but because I think that there's so few facts, but there's so many more truths, right? And I like to learn from each of them, and because I think that, well, if I can give them all that they want, I'll go last, but I'll eat most.
Right.
Okay. Because if business doesn't work for both parties, it's not going to work. But being a bookmaker, though, I would say it's so combative. I mean, it's like from every single angle. When the phone rings, it's never something nice. It's always somebody who wants to sort of have their money back or have some type of extra donation to their, gambling charity or some type of rumour mill. Or like, you are on top. You cannot act in the shadows. It's not like being a professional gambler. You are out there, and it's like you are under attack, and it's now sort of almost just completely acceptable. There's a bookie there, let's attack him.
So are you finding that wearing, or do you still have the bring it on mentality?
Oh no, it's worn me a lot. Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky. I've got a very, very good management team. I don't operationally run the business. I don't go to the office. I've got a fantastic team headed by Flynn Goward. He's the CEO. We've got Luke, who looks after the clients. We have Jane, who looks after our compliance side. And my job, Nick, really is rather similar to you. I have coffees with people. I ask them what they want. I ask them their life story, and I fit them into my group wherever I can. So I put people together, and I see the good in people, and I say, right, you've got that talent, I think it will fit in here. And I introduce, and I get people together, and I get people working together. That's my job. But it is extremely combative, and I have to have the best compliance people, the best legal people, the best PR people ready at all times for the next right-hander coming over the top.
And so you are fighting fires all the time. That's how you feel.
Oh, definitely. I mean,
and you accept the fact that there is going to be almost nobody out there getting the tiny violin out for Ben Keith or indeed the bookmaking industry.
The game owes me nothing. I mean, look, you're a television man, I'm a bookmaker, as I say. There are many very good bookmakers of their time. There are many very good television presenters of their time. The word great has been overused. There's been 3 great bookmakers. Cyril Steenlap-Brooks.
Okay, yep.
These are people who've created empires. They've fulfilled their potential. Cyril Steenlap-Brooks, Denise Coates Bet 365, and Fred Don't Bet Fred. Now, I've always wanted to be number 4, but now I believe that I'm taking in a week what I used to take in a day online. Now, look, nobody's bigger than the market. My market is the industry. My market isn't the next race at Southall, right? My market is the industry, and I have to be that bit ahead of it. So now, gambling and money, it's an energy. It moves, it doesn't stop, and there's a lot more money heading to the racecourse now. So now, before April 27, when the betting taxes go up again, and then the prices will get even worse online and in the betting shops because of these taxes, then there will be more and more money sent to the racecourse, and I'd like to have national coverage then. But I then believe at some point the online will come back again. But at the moment, there's no point trying to fight to move forward online, because unless you can do it on an enormous scale, you're just going to be hitting yourself.
Can you tell me what has set particularly Denise Coates and Fred Doan apart from their peers? What has made Denise Coates as successful as she has been, in your view?
Well, Cyril Steen, he was the example of professionalism. When people used to have a question, they'd go, what did Ladbrokes do? We'll just do that. And he did everything.
So he set the standard.
He was like the bookmaker's bookmaker. He was a professional. He was like you, right? But he was a classy guy, right? Okay.
Enough with the flattery now.
No, but he did it.
But yeah.
Well, take a compliment.
I've enjoyed them. Don't worry, Ben. Don't worry.
But he was a true professional. Denise Coates, there we go. Look at her. Everybody mugged her off for years. They said bet £3.65. I mean, she could buy all of us 10 times now, right? And
so what was the?
Her thing was technology,
right? And
I think that also
so the app was better than everybody else's.
This is it. But also Pat Cooney is a very nice guy. I'm sure he's been in.
Yeah. Pat's been on
your television
the
show
channel
many times.
Yeah.
And now at Toaster Dogs, I'm always fascinated to learn from others. And if you want to fulfil your potential, you have to be like that and just take constructive criticism like a machine gun. Because if you're not going to do that, you're not going to develop. Mm-hmm. And I said to Pat Cooney, I said to him about sponsoring greyhound racing, and he said, and now Bet365 and that's a wonderful thing of them to do, and it's highly appreciated by the dogs and the GBGB. But I said, I asked him about their advertising, and he said she only sponsors the very best. The top things in the world, because then she's associated with that. So I believe that Denise Coates has spent more money. Her gamble has been, right, I'm going to spend everything on the technology, and when I advertise, I'm going to have the best adverts in the world and gamble that they get me the most punters in, and her bet won. I believe that when I look at Betfred, I've met him, he's a pleasure to meet, and it saddens me when people say nasty things about him. They've never met him. He's kindly, he's humble, he's fun.
But kind, humble, fun. You need an extra ingredient, don't you, to get you all the way to being one of the biggest earners in the country?
Absolutely. I think that he's the most relentless of the three. I think that here's a man who's in his 80s.
What appetite for?
I mean, he'd be probably one of the most game people I've ever met. This is somebody he still definitely wants combat, right? And he is still in play, right? Okay, and he's looking at opportunities all over the world in his 80s. He's planning on living forever, like Warren Buffett. His business plan goes on way after he's passed, and just to when you meet him, his energy is unbelievable, unbelievable.
So how much of him do you see in yourself? How long will you be up for the combat?
Look, I'm in play. At the moment, I'm acquisitive. I'm looking to buy businesses. I'm looking to sell businesses. So how many businesses do you own at the moment? Well,
it's a bit like asking someone how many horses they've got, and they don't want to tell their wife or husband or partner or whatever.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of businesses that offer lots of different types of betting, but there are opportunities possibly to sell to people who may want to come into the market, and there will be opportunities to buy from those who want to leave the market. But at the moment, what I'm in control of is expanding out the racecourse, because we're taking on some weekday meetings what we used to take and more on a day at Cheltenham or Royal Ascot. It's amazing.
Why?
Well, I think
because people think that they need to get to the racecourse to get their money on?
Yes, I think that people struggle to now. Look, what you do is wonderful in terms of you set the scene for festivals. That's your job. Yeah, okay, and you do it brilliantly with your team, and everything that happened for Constitution Hill at Southall, we were betting there on the rails and in Tats. Apparently the energy was fabulous, but this year at Cheltenham, it's not, for online, it's not really going to be much of an event, because I was taking colossal bets on these favourites. £500,000, I had £2 million liabilities sometimes, right, on these favourites. People can't get the money into the betting accounts now. They can go to the races and they can play, and they can get on with on-course bookmakers. And I'd say that 7 or 8 times out of 10 you can get 11 to 10 when it's at the track, when it's evens on the show.
So actually the old John McCurrick come racing mantra, are we circling back round?
Absolutely, but I think that gambling will always do that. I mean,
because people will always have an instinct to gamble.
Well, yes, no, but what I meant is in each discipline of gambling, right? So at the moment, the pendulum's gone this way to restrict online bookmakers, right? Well, at some point it has to come here, because they won't be paying.
So it's what I'm saying when I said that people always have the instinct to gamble. I mean, so it's displacement theory. Yes. It's not simply that. All right, you push it over there and it stops.
No, it's an energy. It moves somewhere else. That's it. And the other fantastic thing that's great to see is one thing I thought that was sad. It was when the firms left the betting ring, and they bet there in the number 1, 2, and 3 pitches for, well, since the dawn of time, and they promoted their businesses there. You know, Cyril Steen himself used to bet on the rails, as William Hill and Joe Correll did, but now Star Sports, the Lovell brothers, they offer an excellent service. Welsh bookmakers, they now push their business at the track. Bet Central, they I believe they bet online. They're betting all around. Anthony Kaminskas, he bets at the races. You know, so people are now using, again, meeting people, pressing the flesh. Hello, how are you doing? There's a card. Would you like to open an account? They're using the betting ring to build a clientele again.
So we're back to the future.
Well, again, but yes, but I believe that this will be for a period, and then they'll have to loosen up the online, because it's got impossible to do business online, and you know the costs to be a bookmaker are going up 30% at the end of the year. Well, that's not because they're going to get 30% more money in it, it's because there'll be 30% less bookies paying betting licenses. So it'll have to come back to here, and then the on-course will go down a bit, but the cake's still there.
Ben, for the moment, thank you very much. I know you're going to stay with us. Jonathan and Bruff will be back with us after this.